Sudan. It's, you might have heard about it a little bit in the news.
Yeah.
Kind of overshadowed by, the big conflicts like Gaza and Ukraine.
Right.
But what's happening over there is, it's really the biggest humanitarian crisis on the planet right now.
Absolutely.
And we're talking about a man-made famine here, fueled by this just brutal civil war. That's been going on for 2 years.
Yeah. It's been raging for a while.
Over 25 million people are starving. That's more than half of the country's population.
Yeah, and of those, you've got a staggering 3.2 million who are children under the age of 5, and they're grappling with acute malnutrition. It's really hard to even fathom.
So, we need to understand the context here to even grasp what's happening. This isn't just like a sudden, eruption of violence.
No.
Back in 2019, there was, what seems like a glimmer of hope when that long-standing dictator Omar al-Bashir was overthrown.
Yeah, people were really hopeful.
Sudanese people, they were ready for a civilian government.
Yeah, they wanted democracy. They were really yearning for it.
A chance at democracy.
And instead, what happened? Power kind of slipped into the hands of these two rival generals.
Right.
You've got Mohammed Daglo. He's leading the Rapid Support Forces. And then you've got General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. He's the head of the Sudanese army.
And they promised a transition to civilian rule.
They did.
Yeah.
But, as we've seen time and time again, power dynamics, they can shift really quickly.
Yeah.
And often not for the better.
And shift they did. In 2023, these two generals, they just turned on each other.
It's amazing how quickly it all fell apart.
Instead of ushering in this democracy, they plunged Sudan into this horrific civil war.
It's a tragic turn of events.
And now they both face U.S. sanctions for alleged war crimes and even genocide.
Yeah, the U.S. government is not taking this lightly. They're trying to use sanctions as a tool to, exert pressure and deter these actions that they, deem unacceptable. They do this on the world stage, right?
Right.
And it's interesting, these sanctions themselves, they're a really complex beast.
Yeah.
You've got these targeted sanctions against individuals, financial sanctions. Those aim to cripple their resources.
Right.
Then you've got broader sanctions that impact things like trade and even humanitarian aid.
The CBS News team, one of the sources we're diving into today, they went to incredible lengths to get this story.
Oh, bet.
2 years. 2 years just to obtain visas.
Wow.
And even then, they face these 12 to 14-hour drives.
Oh, my gosh.
Countless checkpoints.
Wow.
The constant threat of violence, all to reach the areas even remotely close to the front lines.
It's incredible they were able to get anything at all.
They couldn't even access the worst-hit areas because of the intense fighting.
Yeah, that highlights a really important point about the role that journalists play in these conflict zones.
Right.
They're risking their lives to bring these stories to light.
And it's a stark reminder that even getting information out of Sudan is a struggle,
Yeah.
let alone getting essential aid in.
Exactly.
But what they did manage to see,
Yeah.
in the tent camps where displaced families are seeking refuge,
Right.
it paints a really grim picture.
Yeah, I can imagine.
One story that really stuck with me was about a child, critically starving. Just arrived at a camp. They were just clinging to life.
And that just speaks to the larger problem, the widespread malnutrition ravaging Sudan.
Right.
UNICEF volunteers are working tirelessly. But what they're finding is nearly every child under 3 is severely malnourished.
Yeah.
And without intervention, their chances of survival, they just dwindle rapidly.
It's not just the camps either. The CBS report, it actually takes us inside this Al-Baluk Children's Hospital.
Oh, wow.
In Omdurman,
Okay.
which is just 12 miles from, the heart of the fight.
Wow. In Khartoum. The capital. Can you imagine? A children's hospital. So close. That's gotta be scary. For everyone involved.
To active war zones.
Yeah, that proximity it's a double-edged sword, I guess.
Yeah.
Right? On the one hand, it's good because it allows for quicker access for those in desperate need.
Right.
But on the other hand, it just puts such immense pressure on that hospital.
Of course.
Resources are constantly stretched thin. And you've got the medical staff, working under unimaginable stress.
And they interviewed a doctor there, Mohammed Fadlallah. He's volunteering with Doctors Without Borders.
Oh, wow.
And he's originally from Cincinnati.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Shows you the global reach of this crisis.
Yeah.
The people who are drawn to help.
And he didn't sugarcoat the situation at all. He called it dire straits.
Oh, God.
Which is, coming from someone on the front lines like that.
Yeah, that's a chilling assessment.
It reinforces the point that this isn't, this crisis isn't static. It's actively worsening
Right.
every day.
Deteriorating day by day, yeah.
There's one story from the hospital that really stayed with me. It's about a 13-month-old, Ibrahim Jafar.
Oh, gosh.
He was close to death. His eyesight was already damaged from the severity of the malnutrition.
It's so hard to even fathom a child that young enduring such suffering.
And his story is tragically, not unique.
Right.
He represents countless children facing these consequences of malnutrition.
And what's even more concerning is that even if these children survive, the long-term effects on their health, on their development, they can be profound.
His grandmother, Nimat Abubaker, she told reporters about their harrowing escape from Al Jazeera.
Right.
They were trapped there for months without food or water.
Oh, my God.
Just trying to survive each day.
It's unimaginable.
And that fear, that sense of desperation, it was shared by so many of the parents in the ward. They're not just worried about survival. They're terrified about whether they'll even reach help in time.
And that brings us to a really critical turning point in our deep dive here.
Right.
The role of U.S. aid.
Yeah.
And the recent freeze. That has created a significant roadblock.
Yeah.
USAID. This is the main source of aid for Sudan.
Right.
It's been really, really heavily impacted by this decision.
And to be fair, the Biden administration has pledged $2 billion for emergency response in Sudan.
Okay.
With $276 million of that allocated to USAID.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot.
Right.
It is a significant amount.
Yeah.
But the real question here, it's about speed.
Right.
And efficiency.
Yeah.
How quickly can they actually deploy this money?
Right.
How much of it actually reaches the people who need it?
Yeah.
And that's where things get really complicated.
The CBS report described this WFP warehouse in Port Sudan.
Okay.
It was packed with U.S.-funded sorghum,
right,
which is like a staple grain in their diet. So the food is ready.
Yeah.
The people are on the brink of starvation. But there's a catch.
There's always a catch, isn't there? What is it?
It's been held up for over a month.
Oh, no.
It's caught in this web of, bureaucratic hurdles and the ongoing fighting.
And that delay, it's not just an inconvenience. This is life or death.
Right.
Every single day that passes means more empty stomachs, more children slipping deeper into malnutrition, and ultimately more lives are lost.
It's a cruel irony that this life-saving aid is just sitting there, unable to reach those who need it the most.
It is. It's awful. And unfortunately, it gets worse.
It does.
It's not just the red tape. It's a deliberate strategy.
Right. We're talking about weaponizing food.
Exactly.
Both warring factions are actively blocking these aid deliveries.
They're using it.
They're manipulating hunger as leverage.
As leverage. It's a tactic that's, it's sadly not new to conflicts.
Right.
But it's particularly devastating in a country that's already teetering on the edge of famine.
It's sickening to think that they're holding millions hostage, using their basic need for survival as a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
And they quoted Lanny Kinsley,
okay,
who is the head of communications for the World Food Program.
Okay.
She said that the impact of this U.S. aid freeze would be catastrophic for Sudan.
And her warning, it carries a lot of weight.
Yeah.
The World Food Program, they're on the front lines of this crisis.
Right.
They're witnessing the situation firsthand.
And she emphasized the point that, every single delay means lives are lost.
It's true.
And she actually painted this very chilling picture of what might happen if the aid doesn't arrive soon. She said they might end up digging up bodies instead of feeding people.
Oh.
It's hard to even stomach that, but it's the reality they're facing. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by the sheer scale of this crisis.
It is.
But amidst all the despair, the CBS report, it does offer a glimmer of hope, however fragile it might be.
Even in the darkest of times, it's important to remember the incredible resilience of the Sudanese people.
Yeah.
The dedication of aid workers and medical professionals. They're working tirelessly to save lives.
They haven't given up.
They haven't given up, and neither should we.
And remember, baby Ibrahim, his condition had actually worsened.
Oh, no.
But the doctors refused to give up.
That's good.
They kept fighting for his life.
That's incredible. That unwavering commitment, that refusal to surrender, even in the face of such immense challenges.
Yeah.
That's a testament to the human spirit. It's a beacon of hope that even in the darkest times, there are those who choose action over apathy,
Yeah.
who fight for every single life.
It's like Ibrahim's fate and the fate of Sudan. It's all kind of hanging in the balance, this story of suffering and resilience and despair and hope. It all comes together, and it makes you think, what can we do? Sitting here thousands of miles away, what can we actually do?
It is. It's easy to feel powerless
Yeah.
when you're faced with a crisis of this magnitude, especially when it feels so far removed from our daily lives. But that's where we're even having this conversation. Awareness.
Yeah.
That's the first step towards actually doing something,
Yeah.
meaningful action.
We can't just switch off, when the news gets heavy.
Right.
It's not about, guilt-tripping anyone. It's about recognizing our shared humanity, What happens in Sudan or anywhere in the world, really, it does impact us all,
Yeah.
even if it's indirectly.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. Sudan's instability, it creates these ripples, refugee flows,
Right.
potentially destabilizing neighboring countries.
Yeah.
And this whole tactic of weaponizing food, it sets a dangerous precedent
Yeah.
that could be replicated in other conflicts.
So it kind of begs the question, what responsibility do we bear as global citizens? I mean, we're not policymakers, We're not billionaires
Yeah.
with foundations. But we do have voices.
Yeah.
And we do have choices.
We do.
Mm.
And those choices, even if they seem small, they matter. Supporting organizations
Yeah.
that are working on the ground, raising awareness in our own communities, even just staying informed,
Yeah.
engaging in these thoughtful conversations
Yeah.
about these issues. These are all forms of action.
Yeah. So to wrap up this really difficult but very necessary deep dive, I want to leave you with this. Imagine you're Ibrahim's grandmother or any of those parents in that hospital ward, just clinging to hope. What would you want the world to know? What would you hope people would do?
It's a powerful image, isn't it? To move beyond the statistics
Mm.
and the headlines, to connect with those human stories at the heart of it all.
Yeah.
That's where empathy takes root. And that's where meaningful action can begin.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into this crisis in Sudan. It's not easy to confront these realities, but it's absolutely essential. We hope that you'll continue to learn, engage, and find your own way to be a part of positive change in Sudan and beyond.